So everybody has a different way of relating to one another, feeling understood, feeling known, feeling seen, heard, and felt, and different ways of joking, different ways of flirting. All of these things are captured by our talk types.
Welcome, everyone, to the Headed Home podcast. We have a super special guest for you today. Amanda Kenderes is the author of a book called Talk Types, which we've been talking about in our house for the last few days and have been really fascinated with this idea. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Jen. Yeah, it's great to be here. This is going to be fun.
It is. I was fascinated as I kind of got into your story. You have a really interesting background of how the heck you got into this work. So I would love if you could just hop right into how this became of interest to you.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I have a bit of a different background. I grew up on 5 continents. My dad had a job with the US Embassy, so every 3 years we moved to a new continent. So I was North and South America, Asia, Africa, Europe. And in all of this change, I had this sense that, gosh, if I'm going to really connect with people in any one place, I've got to find a way to do so quickly because I'm going to be moving on soon again. And how do we connect with people? Through talk. My situation kind of made of me a student of communication. And so I started trying things out. I was I was a brave kid, and so maybe a little naive, but I love the deep talk. I was like, let's just dive right into the meaning of life. Let's just go there. And I would try that out with peers on the playground. I mean, in elementary school, I would try, and that didn't work very well most of the time. So I shifted to
They weren't ready for that.
You're like, what is the meaning of your life and why?
Yeah.
They're like, I want cookies for
What's
snack.
the meaning of your 5 years? Yeah. So I shifted to adults. I thought, well, gee, maybe this kind of talk, it's not for kids. I'll shift to the adults, bus drivers in my life or the teachers or coaches. And I would ask them questions like, what is happiness? Or if they were married, I would ask them, how did you know you'd found the one? Well, needless to say, this didn't go over either pretty well. And so I got quite depressed because I thought, in my own kid logic, if kids aren't interested in this and adults aren't really either, where does that leave me? Because I'm a deep talk kind of gal. Am I going to find my place? And of course, I had a very small sample size. I didn't understand that at the time. But instead of just letting the depression take over me, it fueled me into a desire to understand it and to get on top of it. I was pretty stubborn. I guess I still am. And so I said, I'm going to figure out this communication thing, because there were some people that really liked the deep talk. I also was very interested in facts and information. In my talk type language, I'm a CA. So I did. I spent a number of years. Finally, when I was 19, I had a conversation with my father that ultimately led me to seeing, this epiphany that there are 3 fundamental reasons that we talk. And when we rank them by preference, we get 6 talk types. And then I spent the next 25 years fine-tuning the model and writing the book. And here it is. So little bit long introduction. I apologize, but it's a long story, and that's the short.
Great.
So.
Right. Well, okay. So you said there are 3 fundamental reasons why we talk. What are those 3 reasons?
So I have a number of nicknames for them in the book. I call them A, B, and C for shorthand. A is factual understanding. It's objective understanding. So these folks want to learn stuff and know stuff and share information and receive information. B's are relators, and ultimately they want to be heard. When they tell a story, don't interrupt them because
Oh, sorry.
don't interrupt them because they want to be heard. And even if you think you know where they're going, don't interrupt them.
Amanda, I feel like this is therapy for us, but carry on. Just you.
It's so true.
That's why it's good, though. That's why it's good to learn, right?
Oh my gosh. So Hilarious. So these are relators. They're interested in the subjective experience. They'll share their own subjective experience and they'll give you dialogue so that you can really kind of relive it with them. And then C's are interested in subjective understanding. They are the meaning makers. They want to know all those questions I asked when I was a kid, the deep stuff. And when you're older, you might have some of those same questions, but you might ask, how questions that might look at a larger scope, like how have you grown over the years, and what have been some of your challenges or triumphs. Those are C questions. So ultimately, there are these three reasons for talking, and we can step back even further just for a hot second. These three reasons for talking are born out of two. There are really only two reasons for talking, if you will. We all people only ever talk. We talk to share our understanding, or we talk to share our experience. That's it, just two. But here's the clincher. Our understanding can be objective or subjective. That's why we get three.
Got it. That
Gotcha.
makes sense.
It's a new way of looking at communication.
Yeah, it is.
That's it. Yeah.
I think what's and one thing in the book that I thought was really interesting, and it made me laugh because for so many years I work with people around conflict management, right? Or, how do you have conversations when you're frustrated with each other in order to move forward? And I was kind of laughing at the elevator story in the book.
Yes.
Because you can walk into this experience, and I'll have you share kind of that story, but you can walk into an experience where all of you are having three very different perspectives on the experience. And it can almost seem like you're speaking completely different languages because you're just not even thinking or reflecting that this other human being is focusing on this one particular part of the story. So I just thought that was really fascinating. If you want to kind of briefly chat about what that looks like with the three buckets of talk.
Yeah, the elevator story. It's a true story. It happened to me when I was a Ph.D. student at UCLA. I was going to my class. I was a student, and there was a conference going on at the school. So, you had people with lanyards and such. And these are people that probably just are getting to know each other. They don't have a huge, a long history. So I got in an elevator, and then these three folks came on, and then the doors closed. So it was just us, and I wasn't behind them, just listening. And they all wanted to connect. I mean, they seemed sincere, but they just kept missing each other. So there was an A dominant, a B dominant, and a C dominant on this elevator. Couldn't have been more perfect. The B dominant, elevator doors closed. It seemed kind of awkward because it was silent. You know how it is on elevator. And so she wanted to make some conversation. So she said, did I ever tell you about the time I got stuck on an elevator? And the A dominant just answered in A. He was like, no. No, you didn't tell me. Well, that wasn't what she was hoping for. Come on, reasonable. And she said, well, I was on this elevator, and there was, 7, 8, a whole bunch of us going up this elevator. We got to our floor, just about to, open the doors, and then bam, it dropped, and we were stuck. And the A dominant says, do you know what year the elevator was built? And she's like, what? You could see it and feel it. And she was like, I don't know any of that. I just thought I was going to die. Well, now the A dominant is starting to pick up on she's not okay. She's feeling upset about it. He tries to fix it, and he explains, well, no. It's just that prior to the year in 1905, most elevators could only handle about 1,000 pounds. And she's like, this makes it worse. She pats her belly and goes, well, I know some of us could stand to lose a few pounds.
Oh, no.
She thinks he's calling her fat.
Right. Yep.
And then the C dominant jumps in and is like, I'm going to try and rescue this one. So he says, I was actually stuck in an elevator once myself, and I used to be terrified of elevators. I always took the stairs. But then once I took the elevator and I got stuck. but you know what? Because I was okay. And I learned that often the fear of something is worse than the thing itself.
The deep
And the elevator's
philosophical.
doors opened and they left. And I thought, my gosh, this is a perfect scenario
It's
for.
so great. It's so great. They're literally having 3 different conversations with each other.
They really are. They really are. And they're just this they're not meeting each other. And because they all have different objectives, which is the whole point of these talk types. And A is trying to understand factual information, like why did this elevator fail? That's the whole point of the conversation to him. The whole point for the B is, no, hear my story. This is crazy. Can you be a witness to like what happened to me? Hello?
Right.
And the C is going, what life lessons can we learn from our experiences? So
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I would love to get into like how you break it down into the 6 different ones. But one thing that really resonated with me, because I'm a BC. So I obviously am thinking a lot about like connection and relationships and relating with people. But it's so funny because Andrew is an AC, and so he is very factual. And it just makes me laugh because so many times, like, I lead when I'm connecting, like, or when I'm talking to people, like, I very much lead with like, how can I make a connection, or like, how can I relate to them? And you're very factual. And so like, it's so funny to like think and reflect on how this can like impact how we walk into experiences or situations.
Absolutely. And, I wish we had, I mean, it's kind of funny because I have this communication model and I'm saying that I wish we had something more than, it's a language model, communication model, but I wish we had something more than language to be able to talk about it, because Bs are relators, but As and Cs can relate to each other too. We just relate differently. So, Andrew's going to walk into a grocery store, and if he's going to connect with the clerk, an A connecting with another A, or relating with another A, if you will, they're going to relate over facts. That's how they're going to connect. Yep. So it's not that that only Bs connect with other people or relate to them. It's just that each of us does all the things, we just do it differently. And language fails us. There are no words that I could find in the last 35 years that are better than the ones that I put in the book. But it is what it is. We have what we have. So everybody has a different way of relating to one another, feeling understood, feeling known, feeling seen, heard, and felt, and different ways of joking.
Yeah.
Different ways of flirting. All of these things are captured by our talk types. And but we're missing the language component to be able to. So in the book, I do my best to kind of break that down. And it sounds like that, self-identified as a BC and AC. Sounds like that message was communicated. Yay. But I just want to give our listeners a caveat that, I mean, language, people tend to think that, the Bs are the socialites and the As and Cs are, a little bit. No, As and Cs can be quite social, but they're going to do it in a different way.
Right.
That makes sense.
And understanding that, I think, like, uncovers just a lot, because I think sometimes if I'm an A and I have a hard time maybe relating to a B or a C in some situations, I might have just the initial reaction to just, we don't connect, they're weird, or, and I think a lot of people maybe do that. Like, there's no connection here, where maybe there is, if you can understand their communication style. And, it's important in business, we're in every day, is understanding the different ways that people communicate and being able to relate and, still have productive conversations.
Well, just like
absolutely,
just a clarifying point, you are a little weird.
Oh yeah, of course.
Well, all of us double duty understanders, as I call us, are we're a little off, LOL. But the double duty understanders, those are the ACs and CAs, and I call us double duty understanders because with A, it's objective understanding, and C is subjective understanding. That's our goal. So we get 2 doses of understanding. We're understanding as our goal, and whereas Bs, their goal is to be heard. And as a BC, your mix would be, be heard and then understanding. So everybody has some understanding as a component of their talk type, but the ACs and the CAs have both. And so it just sometimes can feel a little bit like it can feel to others something, people who are have a more of a mix or a balance, that there's something a little bit I don't know, intense about an AC.
That's a great word.
Yeah,
That's a great word. Amanda, talk real fast about, I love that I said real fast, but talk about the 6, like we've been kind of talking about like A, B, AC, like talk really briefly about that structure.
Sure. So if we have these 3 fundamental reasons for talking, A, B, and C, and we rank them by preference, with our dominant category being the one we like the most. We feel most at home or at ease with the one that's most energizing to us. We get 6 talk types. These talk types are AB, AC, BA, BC, CA, and CB. ABs tend to come across sometimes as a little, I don't know, geeky or nerdy, like Bill Gates, Elizabeth Warren would be examples, but they are really great at just very objectively going through information, and they don't have the C to be thinking about all the possible ramifications on, the deep ramifications for people and the meaning behind that. So it actually makes them really good brainstormers because they're not thinking about these deep potential consequences, and so they can think in a way that's much more lighthearted and open. Then you got ACs like Barack Obama, Edward Snowden. That these are like the more intense A's, if you will, and we could often identify an AC because what we get from them in public is often just A. So people will type them and be like, I don't know what they are, because they're an AA, just AAA. Everything I see is A. ACs tend to reserve their C for their intimate group, their like the best friends or their life partner, and not much of their C seeps out in public or at work. So that's a telltale sign for the AC.
This doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
That's really, yeah,
Not
I
at all.
relate to that for sure.
Yeah, and we can see with Obama, if we just listen to one of his speeches, it's very fact forward, but there's a soulfulness underneath this deep, meaning, like of what do the facts mean. If we look at a BA, this is going to be somebody like BAs are probably the most varied, honestly, because B is the most varied talk type because it's their subjective experience, and people have all sorts of subjective experiences. And then, A following it's, facts, which is a wide variety too. But we've got folks like Stephen Colbert. A more intense version would be like Bill O'Reilly. In the book, I have more examples. And then BC, we've got Amy Schumer is she's
her.
trying to use archetypes here, people that really, but BCs don't have to be quite as dramatic as her, but that's an example. And then CAs, you got Matt Damon, Jon Stewart, and CBs. Oprah Winfrey is a quintessential CB. She leads with that deep C, and then we'll laugh about, make a joke like, "Oh, girl, let me see your shoes. Did you get your nails done?" It goes up for air.
So true.
For B in B, yeah.
That's great.
So interesting.
That's really helpful. So as I was thinking about this, I mean, there's multiple ways that you can think about how this framework can, be implemented and support you in your life. But you're a parent, and I was thinking about, man, like this is such an interesting framework for like how our kids are 8 and 10. And they're very different. And so it it's like this makes me laugh because they're so different. And I think it's a great framework in thinking about how you communicate with your kids, because you likely have your own one and it's going to be different probably than the one that they have.
Oh, absolutely. It's really a game changer. The talk type model is a game changer for families, I think, because once we identify our own talk type, then we start to see others, and we see our kids say, "Oh, okay, gee, it's probably more, like you said, it's more likely that they don't share our talk type than they do." And then as adult children, we look at our own parents.
Yeah.
And we can kind of put our own histories in perspective and our relationship with our own parents. But in raising kids, yeah, wow. So once we have, we know our talk type and we identify our kids' talk types, then we can interact with them and engage with them in a way that meets their needs. I think as we know as parents that we kind of put our needs second to theirs. That's what parents do a lot of the time, in a healthy way. But in doing that, it's like, okay, let me adjust my talk type to yours. If you're going through a hard time, the kids don't have the mental faculties, the logical faculties, or the experience that adults have. And so, it's an act of grace to be able to meet our kids where they are. And when we can meet them where they are, then we build trust, and we're more likely to have those conversations with them that we need to be able to know what's going on in their lives, to be able to help them in a way that they can actually receive, and on and on. I mean, it's huge. It's invaluable.
One thing I heard you mention in another interview, which I thought was a great point, is, you're really born with like a specific talk type, right? But like the great part about this is like when you have an awareness of what this is, right? Or like I have an awareness of what yours is, you can build skills and tools to support maybe like your areas of weakness, right? So, like if I struggle with like a particular spot or whatever, or if I'm trying to connect with my son who has a very different talk type than me, like I can learn skills and be mindful of that in order to communicate more effectively.
Absolutely. And one of the ways that we can do that just off the bat is by asking questions in the other person's dominant category, or at least dominant category ideally, but even their secondary. Couple things here. When we ask questions in the other person's talk type, it's sort of minimal effort on our part, and especially or minimal skills even required. We just have to be able to identify a question within that talk type. And then the other person who's comfortable in that talk type can just go on and talk, whether sharing their experience or their understanding. So it lets the person who is doing this talk type, talking in this category, it lets them do their thing naturally. And it allows us to, with minimal skills or effort, to be able to engage them. That said, the good news is that for each of us, there's always even though we don't have a perfect or 100% alignment with everybody that we meet, or our kids or our friends or etc., coworkers, there's always one point of alignment. We always share one communication category with everybody. So that's the beautiful thing. So if you're a BC and Andrew's an AC, well, then you share C. But you could pull up any combination, and there's always one area of overlap, at least one, if not two. So in that case, absolutely lean into the area of overlap, for starters, at the very least.
Great advice. Can you explain how the talk type model helps us avoid costly mistakes in life decisions?
Wow, you really went for a deep question, babe.
Yeah, no, we're diving into C here.
Yeah, it's coming out.
Costly mistakes, some of them are probably going to happen anyway, but absolutely that the talk types can help us avoid some of them. That's absolutely true. I think one of the areas where this might happen the most is in relationships and with picking life partners. To be honest, and people ask me, I get this all the time, what's the best talk type match for a relationship? There is no perfect talk type match for people. I mean, if you're in 100% aligned with somebody on talk type, you'll probably get along quite well naturally, but you're also going to share the same weaknesses. And in a relationship, sometimes it's actually beneficial, a lot of times, to have different strengths. So, okay, pros and cons. But the best relationships, ultimately, the best relationship pairing is what you decide it is. So what the talk type model does is it puts you in the driver's seat to be able to make intentional decisions.
Yeah.
You say, okay, I'm a BC, but I'm attracted to A. Sometimes it's annoying to me, okay, but actually I want it in my life. I want it in my relationship. So I'm going to go on dates, and I see that, okay, this guy doesn't, have A in his talk type. Maybe, I'm not going to go on a second date. Whereas before, we have that awareness of talk type, then we go, it's much more nebulous. Oh, let me go on another date and see, or let's start dating and see if it works out. Yeah, we can waste, so to speak, years.
Mm-hmm.
We can end up with multiple divorces because we didn't have the vocabulary to identify what we wanted from the get-go. So that's one area.
I feel like so much of I feel like the older I get, so much of it is just like an awareness of who you are and like how you respond, like who other people are. But so much of it comes from just like an awareness of how you are and who you are and what you need and what you want. But that's really
yeah, it
interesting.
definitely
Yeah.
increases our self-awareness for sure, 100%.
Yes. How do you see this impacting, folks in their careers or like on a business level? I imagine obviously with business, it's really important to understand and be able to adjust depending on how people communicate, right? But how do you see this impacting business and career decisions?
Yeah, no, this is huge too. So in the same way, just as with personal and interpersonal relationships, with business and career, we can make better decisions when we have this vocabulary to say, okay, no, actually, I like math, but I'm a CA. And so I don't think accounting is going to be the best fit, because as a C dominant, I need that sense of meaning. And without that meaning making element, which accounting, you might find a little bit here and there, but it's not going to be a lot. So that's probably going to be better suited for an AB, maybe that kind of thing. We can make better career decisions. But then also, like you said, just being adaptable and flexible and being able to dial up and dial down our talk types and the categories that we use with people in our work interactions. And in real estate, it's really interesting. People are looking for, especially with residential, right? People are looking for their home. And a lot of times, maybe they want to buy an investment property or whatever. And okay, but let's say they're looking for their own use, personal. Well, if they're a C dominant, if they have A, they're going to be interested. They're probably going to have a list written out of all the things that they want, and let's check all the boxes and whatnot. Okay. If they're a C dominant, it's going to have to feel right. Like, no, this is my home, and so there are going to be some things that, yeah, even if we check these boxes and it has all these things that I want, but if it just doesn't feel right, if it's not a place that I feel really connected to in that way, I'm not going to go for it. And with B's, BC is going to connect with that too because of the C. But with B, maybe it's going to be things like the neighbors and what's it like in the neighborhood? What are the different places to connect? What are the restaurants or the gyms or the different things, or the I don't know.
The vibe. What's the vibe?
Yeah, the vibe. That all of that stuff, like the vibe of the neighborhood and the area and the town and the. Absolutely. So being able to identify the talk types of the people coming in, then we don't waste as much time driving to this house and looking at that one, looking at that one, looking at that one. No, we can just say, you know what? Okay. And we have a couple here. I think this partner is really going to like this. This one might like this. Let's find something that you both, and here's where we find the overlap. Okay. both of you, for example, overlap in C. I've got to, as a real estate professional, I've got to find something that has C because it's both of their overlaps. So there's so many ways to kind of apply this, even in that market.
That's great advice. We have a lot of real estate agents and loan officers who listen to this, and home buyers. So I think that it would be great for all of our listeners to buy Talk Types and read the book and see how you can implement it in your life. But where can they find you? Where can they purchase the book?
Book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. They can find me at amandakenderes.com, talktypes.com, and then also all the social media that you would expect. It's all under Amanda Kenderes. And if they want to be in touch, amandakenderes.com, there's a little form they can fill out, and it'll send a message to my inbox, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. This was
thank you so much.
So helpful, and I loved every part of it. So thank you.
I love it. It was so much fun. I knew it was going to be. It was a pleasure to speak with you both, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you to all of our listeners. We'll catch you on the next one.